What's up, hackers? Welcome to Saturday Hacker Day. My name is Taggart, and today, as always on Saturdays, we're going to kick this off with This Week in Cyber. And we just have two stories that I wanted to touch on before we get into the main material. The first one, just because it's too funny, is we have yet another F5 Big IP remote code execution vulnerability. Incredible. So this is being tracked as CVE 2022-1388, and it has a severity of 9.8. This is, according to F5, a vulnerability inside the REST API for something called the iControl framework. I don't work with F5 devices, so I'm going to have to take this on kind of face value here. But it's used to communicate between F5 devices and users. Looks like there is a way to bypass the authentication and access the F5 Big IP systems and execute arbitrary commands. At this point, wouldn't F5 just kind of start from scratch? Just a thought. Like, how many 9.8s and 10s does it take for them to say, okay, we need a stem to stern refit of this entire code base, because plainly what we were doing before was not working. And by the way, these are almost every time, these are essentially web application vulnerabilities, if I understand that. But that costs money. Yeah, so does drops in stock prices after investor confidence is depleted. These are web application vulnerabilities almost every time, right? And I think that's interesting because, it's very rare that you're going to find buffer overflows or that kind of thing. That happens sometimes in these appliances, but almost every time it's the caliber of the web development that is at issue with these things, and then what gets exposed. And so I think I have a little bit of a bias here because obviously I am a web developer, but I do think that sometimes the web development aspect of these security tools is undervalued. And I see this in other areas as well, where, if you have an MSSP or another security tool and they provide you an EDR console or something else like that, even if the technology underlying the security tool is excellent, the web application that you, the client, get to use to access it may be a garbage fire. That development matters too. It's like, because that's the aspect that you as the user are going to interface with most often. It's like, I remember reading something about car design and how the stuff that car designers spend the most time focusing on is everything that you are going to touch and interface with every day, right? So they spend a lot of time on the steering wheel, on the door handles, on the gear shifter, even things like the way that the overhead light fades down when you get into the car, right? One of the things that I remember reading, like the reason they do that is because that the thought was that feels like you're getting ready to be in a show, like going to the theater. And so those interface points really, really matter to user experience, and they often are undervalued in development. Now, this isn't a UX thing. This is a straight up authentication bypass, but the developers who do that very likely are the same. So it may be worth these security companies' time and money to invest in a different caliber of web developer, or I don't want to ding on those developers too hard, but maybe provide some extra support for them when it comes to secure coding practices, because as we know, that often is a tack on to a developer's experience rather than something that's baked into their training. Okay, moving on. I wanted to touch on this story that was reported basically everywhere, but I'll give it to you from the Register, about Apple, Microsoft, and Google looking to move to a passwordless future and looking for more use of FIDO and more use of alternative and multi-factor authentication without having to enter a password. At face value, this sounds like a great idea. I have some concerns though, and my concerns are about adoption and education. Shocker, right? But my concerns are essentially, if we talk about FIDO, you're going to deal with an external device that most people aren't super comfortable with. And that's going to take a lot of training, and it's going to take a massive deployment. Sure, Google was able to deploy Titan keys to all of its employees and essentially reduce password-based attacks to zero. That's great. Can we do that for the entire population of the planet? I don't know. And what's the incentive to do that? People tend to be a little bit beholden to inertia. And so I'm concerned about that. And then let's take the FIDO keys out of it, right? Let's take the UB keys and the Titan keys out of it. Let's say that you have a PIN and then you use your phone. I have accessibility concerns with that as well because, sure, most people in developed countries have smartphones, but that still is an accessibility issue across the world. And then are we going to undervalue protection of passwords at the same time? I'm not saying that this is a bad idea. I'm just saying we got to carefully consider how it's done. Because if we move on from passwords, which is kind of the devil you know, we are introducing a whole new species of security concerns into the mix. And if it becomes the expectation that users across the world are going to authenticate in these methods, we have to teach them how to do that and have to unteach them how they have been authenticating for most of their lives if we're talking about adults. And then finally, probably the scariest concern here is that in addition to the FIDO aspect of this and everything else, is that in another authentication scheme would be biometrics. And that one I just absolutely draw the line at. I do not want more biometric data floating around the web. And certainly I don't want these companies to be responsible for more biometric data. They shouldn't be. They shouldn't be. There have been good efforts at biometric security. I specifically like the way that Apple did it with their secure escrow chip on the iPhone to handle the fingerprint sensor. That's great. Is that going to work across the globe? Exactly, GoPro. Hey, your friendly Warlock, first of all, welcome. And how does FIDO work exactly? I am not a super expert in how FIDO works, but broadly speaking, what you end up generating is with an external device like a YubiKey, you generate essentially a key that authenticates directly. Yeah, I'm not a lawyer either, but I do know that we've seen, and I was talking about this on Mastodon a little bit, you can be compelled to give a fingerprint by law enforcement, right? And so if that's what locks your devices, uh-oh. Whereas you cannot be compelled to give a password. That is protected. That is protected information, at least in the United States, but broadly speaking, I think as well, right? You cannot be compelled to give a password, but you can be compelled to give a fingerprint, which means that if that's what unlocks your device, you're in trouble. So I have serious concerns about the way this gets rolled out. As with everything when it comes to new tech ideas, I think the technology runs ahead of the law, and I think that it runs ahead of potentially ethicality and what's really good for us. Passwords aren't perfect. We certainly know that. But we also know that biometrics, while easy, have other concerns, especially when it requires us to trust people who maintain that data. All right. Today, we're getting back into the home lab. We're going to do some serious home lab work because I wanted to do this the right way and like set up a new server. And we're kind of going to go from scratch with all this. But what we're talking about today is threat intelligence with OpenCTI. If you're not familiar with OpenCTI, it is an open source TIP, threat intelligence platform, that allows you to aggregate threat intelligence sources into a single dashboard that allows you to review the threat landscape and then use that data inside your environment. Is Fido nonce-based? I don't actually know. Yeah, go look. Please look that up, Destroy Worlds. Do I listen to the self-hosted podcast? I don't. I'm familiar with it though. I listen to in terms of Linux podcasts. Let's switch over to the live desktop and then we can talk. Get the tunes back. Yeah, okay, so I was gonna say 2.5 admins. So I listened to Linux After Dark and 2.5 admins. I used to listen to the Jupiter Broadcasting stuff, and I stopped, and I'll tell you why. I stopped. This is maybe me being like too me about it, but the reason I stopped listening to the Jupiter Broadcasting stuff, Linux Action News, Coder Radio, I stopped listening to Coder Radio for 2 reasons. One, they never actually talked about code. They mainly talked about what laptops they wanted to buy because one of the hosts was always spilling drinks on his, and that wasn't useful. But also, they took like a weirdly union-busting stance, like pro-Apple and against some of their developers, and I was like, no way. I'm not interested in that. That was not time or attention that I needed to give to anybody. I don't feel like siding with major corporations over workers who are obviously getting abused. So I stopped listening to the Jupiter the Jupiter Broadcasting stuff for that reason. That being said, Wes Payne is a really, really cool developer who does a lot of neat functional programming stuff. But yeah, 2.5 admins, Linux After Dark, Late Night Linux. Those are really cool. And yeah, I don't listen to a whole lot of tech podcasts anymore. Honestly, I used to listen to more, like the New Rustation podcast for Rust, but it was like, this doesn't actually help. Listening to code doesn't really help that much. Okay, so OpenCTI, we're gonna deploy this. I would show you the OpenCTI website, which is opencti.io, but it's down right now, so I can't do that. But that's okay, because the documentation is hosted on Notion. So that was handy. That's fine though. The code works fine. And so what we're going to do is we're going to deploy OpenCTI. But before we do, I'm going to talk. We talked about threat intelligence before on this show, but I want to, for new viewers and just to reinforce the idea, when we talk about threat intelligence, I think that it often gets discussed as a monolith, and that's really not the way that it should be discussed. Okay? I want to bring up the Pyramid of Pain, thanks to David Bianco, who I don't know if David Bianco still works at Target's Red Team. But this is the basic idea with the Pyramid of Pain. And what this refers to is indicators of compromise, IOCs, and their complexity. Will this actually load? Yes. And their complexity. And these gradations, these echelons, apply to both attackers and defenders. Down at the bottom, we're talking about file hashes, right? MD5 sums, SHA-256. Those are crazy easy to change, right? Add a space in your ASCII or whatever. Easy to change. For the defenders, also easy to detect. Right here, like hash values, we're in the realm of traditional antivirus, right? Looking for signatures on known malware samples. So easy to detect, but also easy to change. Moving up one level, IP addresses. So where is the malware coming from? What C2 channels are you using? Easy to detect. We have lots of network-based tools and even host-based tools that will tell us what IP addresses a piece of potential malware is connecting to. That being said, it's also really easy for the attackers to change that up. In fact, they should be if they were good. If they're good operators. Rick and Morty, thank you. I'm glad that you enjoyed the Waza Home Lab. I hope today's is going to be of similar value. And by the way, Parzival1775, thank you so much for the follow. Moving up one level, I really think that IP addresses and domain names are functionally the same level of easy to change, but whatever. I guess you have to pay money for domain names. But domain names also, if you have DNS logging one place or another, or you have HTTP proxying or something else like that, you can definitely get those. Easy to detect, but again, easy to change. Orbital, thank you for the gift sub to Rick and Morty. Moving up one level, we get to the annoying. The network and host artifacts, these are a bit more of a pain to pick up. And what we're talking about here on the network, of course, you would need something like packet capture, even NetFlow would qualify here. And you need to deploy specific hardware in a specific network architecture to make that available. If you don't have that, if you don't have the budget for it, or the expertise, whatever it is you're lacking, like that's going to be really hard. And then it's also difficult for the attackers to change up what their activity looks like on the wire. Now, we have things like Cobalt Strike, Malleable C2, things like that are going to change to a certain degree what it looks like. But the more you dive into that network profile, the easier it might be to figure out what that is and where it's going. Even things like one of my personal favorites, JA3 signatures or JA3S signatures, which hash the TLS fingerprint of a server to indicate whether it matches a known malicious profile. So for example, like a default Cobalt Strike server, when you spin that up, will have like a known JA3 hash. Anyway, keeping climbing, we go up to tools. This is hard to detect. Like, how do you detect tooling from a defensive standpoint? Well, you have to really look at behaviors. Or things that it does and methods that it uses, right? And you're talking about really deep events from an endpoint, if you're talking about endpoint compromise. Yeah, especially living off the land stuff. I would argue living off the land stuff, that's up at the top. That's TTPs, right? Where it's not even bringing a specific tool, it's just what you do on the endpoint. So yeah, that's top of the pyramid. Now, it's also tough for the attackers to change that up. Think about a ransomware gang like Conti, right? And we know that they've had their training materials leaked, and the fact is that they have training materials, right? So they're onboarding their associates with a specific set of tools, a specific set of methodologies that they want everyone to follow, so that there's interoperability between their employees, for lack of a better term. So changing all that up once detections get better is challenging for them. It's a big lift. Imagine if at your organization tomorrow you had to switch operating systems that you are using, right? You, viewer of this program, might be totally fine doing that, but maybe another user who is not as completely deep in the weeds with this stuff might really have a problem with that. So changing up your tooling is a big lift, as is detecting extant tooling. And then finally, at the top of the pyramid, we're talking about tactics, techniques, and procedures. Really, really, really tough to detect. This is where we get into, I think, the really cool parts of detection engineering from the blue team side. What is it that the bad guys are doing on the endpoint? How do you detect it? As GoPro said, living off the land binaries, are they exploiting stuff that's already there? What are the patterns that they follow? Do they use bits admin to schedule downloads? Are they using VSS admin to go after volume shadow copies? These are things that we can detect, but we have to have the tooling to get that detection. Kind of annoyingly, if we're just talking about Windows systems, that tooling is not available out of the box. It's easy to get. You can get Sysmon, and then you have to work through that stuff. But it's not available out of the box, really. And so you have to make extra efforts to get that information off of the endpoint, or pay money to a service like Defender for Endpoint, or an EDR like CrowdStrike or SentinelOne or something else like that, in order to get that information in a usable fashion and then take action on it. All right, so that's the overview of the Pyramid of Pain. Why did we go to the trouble of doing this again, other than, it's good to recite the classics? When we talk about threat intelligence, very often what people will talk about is limited to the bottom three right here. And that's often what's available for free as well. Let me show you what I mean. One of the places that we're going to go today is the Alien Vault Open Threat Exchange. That's going to be one of our threat intel feeds that we begin ingesting into OpenCTI, if all goes according to plan. Hey, Jay Midnight and Soradator, thank you so much for the follows. Let me turn the shields off for Alien Vault, just in case that's a problem here. I also should be logged in, but whatever. Feel free to load anytime, Alien Vault. All right. Well, while we're waiting for Alien Vault to come up, let's talk about, let's say, abuse IPDB, for example. Right? Abuse IPDB is another place that has intel about specific IP addresses, right? Well, if we're doing that, right, what we're getting is IP addresses. Here's a recently reported Chinese IP. Absolutely myrtleized. There we go. Okay. And so this is kind of what we get from this feed, just like IP, bad. Another one is the Talos Reputation, Cisco Talos Reputation Center, right? Where we can take an IP and get information about it. Wow. Just wow. Well, that doesn't bode well for us right now. And of course, I've omitted probably the most well-known source of this kind of threat intelligence. Chat, what haven't I mentioned? VirusTotal, absolutely. Which I should be signing into right now anyway. Yep, VirusTotal. Absolutely. Which has an API. CrowdStrike, super expensive tail of threat intel. So, okay, so let's talk about paid threat intel. There is good and bad paid threat intel. Bad paid threat intel just gives you the same stuff that you're getting from these free sources. There's often a lot of overlap between these sources. But good paid threat intel goes a little bit beyond that. What does good paid threat intel do? Good paid threat intel gets you up here. And it tells you about what a threat actor is doing, whom they're targeting, right? So you could ingest every hash, IP address, and domain threat indicator under the sun, but why should you? If you're looking at attackers that have nothing to do with your industry, country, whatever, why would you need to do that? Because there is a limit to how much your automated defenses, which really is what this should be about, can ingest. For example, if you set up a threat intel feed and connect it to a firewall to create automatic block lists, those lists have limited size, and those indicators should have a lifespan. They shouldn't be there forever. So you got to configure aging. You got to figure out what are the feeds that you really care about. You have to curate it a little bit for your environment. So we're going to do some of that with OpenCTI today. Really annoyed that Threat Exchange. Oh, finally it loads. So yeah, here's what OTX looks like. So for example, yeah, let's look for Conti, my old friend here. What we get from the Threat Exchange are these things called pulses. Pulses are community contributed reports containing threat intelligence. If I go straight to indicators, it'll kind of flatten that out, and I can just look at indicators here, right? And you can see that I've got file hashes, I've got IPs, I've got URIs. I do have some Yara rules, no JA3, unfortunately. And I can pull all these in, and what's more, there's an API integration, and this is the kicker for most of the free stuff. But I also want to see... I'm just curious if there's anything open here. File type PDF. Perfect. I don't know when this is from. 2020. A little bit older. but I'll take it. So this is a presentation, but often, Mandiant, for example, or FireEye will have better threat intelligence about what a malicious actor does. So here, notice that we're up at the top levels of that pyramid of pain. Tells us how they move. UNC2452, by the way, is the group that was responsible for the SolarWinds attack, right? So they're giving us the tactics, techniques, and procedures of these groups. Now, some of this is available for free, but the reason that you would pay for a service like Mandiant for FireEye when this came out was that you get all this in one place, and they've curated it for you, and it's a nice package. That's good paid threat intel. Now, do I think that more of it should be free? Yeah, I do. And I think that CISA and other groups, NCSC in the UK, have done a pretty okay job with some of this. That being said, I do take issue sometimes with the way that CISA in particular can package stuff like, here are the top 10 vulnerabilities you need to address. Like, okay, we know vulnerabilities are bad. Tell us more about the TTPs that you've seen, right? Because that's the stuff that we actually need to be tracking. And that we need to, as defenders, should be obligated to up their game to be able to look for tactics, techniques, and procedures, right? Not just ingest that bottom level of the pyramid. I should also mention that another term for these bottom three is often atomic indicators, right? Because they're single things. A hash, an IP address, a domain name, just like a thing. If you see it, it's bad, block it, go away. Everything else is a little bit more complex. We don't call them molecular indicators, but you get the idea. All right. With that preamble out of the way, what does OpenCTI provide for us? So it provides a cool looking dashboard, and really that's the most important point. It has to look cool or you're not going to use it. But my quarks... yeah, I guess maybe the components of the hash should be like gluons or something. I don't know. But yes, it's very important that your defensive dashboard look cool, because when you report to leadership, you need to make it look like you are doing something very cyber, and this makes it look very cyber. And if you think I'm messing with you, I'm not. That's why AC Hunter, I'm convinced, looks the way that it does. I mean, look at this. Look at this UI. No human-computer interaction design specialist would say this is a winner. But I'll tell you who would. Production designers for movies. Because this looks like the screen you would see in a movie, right? It looks tech. But it matters, right? There's so much emotion that goes into our work that we don't think about all the time. But there really is, even in stuff like this. Like what this is doing is producing an emotional response in the operator. I feel cooler when I'm operating this way. It doesn't have to look like this, but that it looks like it makes me more inclined to use it. At least at first, until I get tired of how annoying the UI is. And then I'll be just like, give me plain text. Disable the CSS. Okay, so what does it take to deploy this thing? OpenCTI is a really interesting architecture in that the base system is, and it's designed to be deployed in Docker. Fantastic. So we're going to go through a whole Docker setup on this, just for review. But it's designed to be deployed through Docker. But one of the things that's interesting is that the base system doesn't connect to anything. In order to connect to things, you have to deploy what are called connectors, which are additional Docker containers that are pre-configured to connect to known services. You can also write your own if you want, if you want to be cool like that. But there are existing connectors that are designed to pull data in to OpenCTI. And so we're going to at least deploy one of these connectors. I at least want to get the Alien Vault, and then we'll try VirusTotal as well. So this is the basic idea, right? Connectors come in. RabbitMQ is what sends the data to the workers. There's only going to be one worker, I believe, in this case. And then, oh god, to GraphQL. Whatever. So this is how it's all working under the hood for OpenCTI. But what we need to know, without, being a connector developer, because we're not going to be developing our own today, is that we have to create the connection. And the way that we would do that is in the environment variables that the connector uses. And very often it will be inside of a Docker Compose YAML file, like so. We'll see that more as we get into the actual deployment. So to start, though, I need to set up a machine that is a Docker host. And I haven't done that because I haven't needed to yet in my environment, but now's the time. So here's good old Starbase, rocking out. We have our Ansible server, we have our Jumpbox, which I'm on right now, and we have our Windows stuff, and I have a Linux infrastructure server, but that's doing like DHCP. And I don't want to have that be my Docker host. So I've spun up a new server here that is going to be my Docker host. And I should mention, Proxmox does have the ability to like straight up create containers here with LXC, not Docker. Okay? LXC is an open source container runtime option, and it's from Canonical. It works great. I really like LXC. But it's not going to do the job for us in this case, because we need the whole Docker thing. We need the whole smash, because we're going to be using Docker Compose as well. And so running this with Docker is going to be the best way to make this work. You can fudge it if you wanted to, like alias LXC or Podman to Docker, but I don't want to do that. And also, I don't want to do that on my base system. I don't want the containers running raw on my hypervisor. That's like a cool feature, but that's not actually what I want to do. So I have a Docker host that I'm going to set up from scratch. It's just been created. I haven't done anything with it. And that's what we're going to set up. So first things first, I'm going to set it up to use Ansible, and I'm going to set it up to work in our environment. Hey, OreoBite. Good to see you. Sorry, let me close some windows here. Sorry for that flashing screen. And I'm going to bring up our trusty SecLab inventory. And you see that I've already added these two IP addresses, Docker, in the two environments that this may exist in. I'm putting it in both the isolation net and the internet connected net because I don't know yet how I'm going to use the Docker host. I might use it for isolation stuff and for internet stuff. So I'm putting it in both. That's fine. And so 99.6 and 10.1.99.6. The first thing I'm going to do, though, is change up the IP address right here so I can work with it. If I run IPAS right now, you'll see that I have ENS18 is on the 99 network. Great. I know that's small. Sorry, friends. I'll make it bigger as soon as I can. And then ENS19 is down administratively because I haven't told it what to do. Because the net plan YAML doesn't have anything for it, right? So easiest thing to do is I'm going to sudo vim etc netplan 00 installer config.yaml. And I could change that up if I wanted to, but it's fine. All right, so ENS18 DHCP is going to be false. And then we're going to say addresses. Right? 192.168.99.6. And then gateway 4 is 192.168.99.1. I'm pretty sure I need to do a CIDR for the address now that I just think about it. This is one of those things where oh, hey, Al. Al says, I was having a surprisingly rough time on this internal assessment until I cracked into an Outlook account and found, of all things, a default temp domain account password. Okay. Oh, speaking of Outlook, some news on the Outlook front. Good news for defenders, which is that OA is going away. Well, not OA, but the actually OWE, the Outlook web exchange stuff that allows, let me try this sentence again, the pipeline for legacy applications in Outlook that cannot support MFA is going away, which means that Mail Sniper, among other things, will be a little bit less useful in the future. I'm pretty excited about that. And let me just get up my net plan template here. Every single time I do this, I just cannot remember it for the life of me. Yeah, okay, so addresses actually should be a... like so. And then gateway 4 is correct. But then name servers would be like so. 1, 2. This one doesn't need to search anything, so we'll do quad 8. Okay, I'm gonna do that one first. Sudo netplan apply. PAS. Awesome. IP address is set. And then just because it's going to drive me crazy, the host name is wrong. So sudo vim etc hosts. And change this from infra to seclab docker. Cool. And then I have to do that also sudo vim etc hostname. And I'll do this one with cool vim infra docker. Done. Okay. Now I can do the rest in an actual SSH window, so I don't have to deal with this horrible terminal. Oh, crap. I wasn't looking. Destroy Worlds for Redeem Play Me a Song. Okay, Destroy Worlds. You got it. All right, let's get everything set here. I really need to get a second webcam so I can stop using my phone and Droid Cam for this. Use some of that sweet, sweet promotion money to do that. All right. Music muted.
All right, testing. 1, 2, 3. How are we sounding? think we need like a happy song today, which admittedly is not my wheelhouse usually. All right, let's do a Connor Oberst song. Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, new viewers, this happens sometimes. Yeah, this is called Shell Games. I don't think it's by Bright Eyes, but the musician behind that. Took the fireworks and the vanity, the circuit board and the city streets, the shooting stars swaying palm trees, laid it at the arbiter's feet. If I could change my mind, change the paradigm, prepare myself for another life, forgive myself for the many times I was cruel to something helpless and weak. But here it come, that heavy love, I'm never gonna move it alone. Here it come, that heavy love, tag it on a tenement wall. Here it come, that heavy love, someone gotta share in the load. Oh, here it come, that heavy love, I'm never gonna move it alone. I was dressed in white, touched by something pure, death obsessed like a teenager, sold my tortured youth, pissed in vinegar. I'm still angry with no reason to be. At the architect who imagined this, for the everyman blessed Sisyphus, slipping steadily into madness. Now that's the only place to be free. But here it come, that heavy love, I'm never gonna move it alone. Here it come, that heavy love, tattooed on a criminal's arm. Here it come, that heavy love, someone gotta share in the load. Oh, here it come, that heavy love, never gonna move it alone. No, I don't want to play. It's a shell game. It's a shell game. Distorted sounds on oscilloscopes, distorted facts I could never cope. My private life is an inside joke. No one will explain it to me. Will it be everything that we ever need? Everyone on the count of three. Everyone on the count of three, all together now. Well, here it come, that heavy love, I'm never gonna move it alone. Here it come, that heavy love, playing as the cylinder rolls. Here it come, that heavy love, I only want to share in the load. Oh, here it come, that heavy love, I'm never gonna move it alone.
And we're back. Okay. Let's see, where were we? We have to SSH into this thing. Fantastic. So that works. And then, so from there, we can do the rest of the NetPlan stuff, right? Without having to worry about that horrible shell. It is the right box. I did 99.6. No, you're not wrong. Hey, Kieran. Good to see you. Yeah, it says SecLab Infra. I think like a proper reboot will do that for you, but it's fine for now. Better. There it is. I did the permanent rather than the temporary, and so that's why it wasn't showing on the prompt. There we go. So now we're gonna sudo vim etc netplan all this and do a little bit more vim nonsense here. Cool. Oh, it's so annoying. Fine, be that way. I'm like trying to line it up because the tabbing didn't work out the way that I wanted. I'm at column 5. Oh dear. Okay. Okay, and this is for ends 1.9, so we'll replace that with 9. And actually, it's going to be 10.1. Don't get these problems in Notepad. That's true. I'd be much faster if I were in Nano right now. And now the difference here is that we actually want this one to be 10.1.99.3 as our domain controller for the internal, for our DNS server, right? Yeah. And the gateway, which doesn't work, is 10.1.99.1. 10.1.99. GoPro says just fix the vSphere install. Is it patched? You have to delete the license file every 60 days? Dude, that's why I went to Proxmox. Well, there were many reasons I went to Proxmox, but ugh. Honestly, every time I work with VMware, it makes me want to not work with VMware ever again. Oh, hey, Oreo Bite. Just saw the resub. Thanks, pal. All right, that looks good. Oh, I want to do a search domain. For yeah, search 0 day dot local. Okay, cool. Sudo net plan apply. Kaboom! Both of our interfaces are up. Thank you very much. By the way, obviously this is Ubuntu 2004 and 2204. The latest LTS just came out, but here's your seasoned, battle-hardened Linux sysadmin pro tip. Don't, even if it's LTS, does not mean stable on release. It means that they'll support it for 5 years. So I would not deploy anything in production with 2204 until you hit the first point release. 2204.1 should be okay, but I would not right now, within a month of the release of 2204, set up anything on production. Just yet. You never know if there's going to be some showstopper thing that happened. It's happened before. I think it was 1804 had something pretty gnarly that was patched in 1804.1. God, how long have I been deploying Ubuntu servers? Yeah, that'd be 10, 11 years. All right, not going to think about that again. What else do we need here? So SecLab is kind of set up, except that now that we have the IP address set up, we can do another thing that I wanted, and I finally set up tmux and everything properly on my jump box. So we can exit out of here, actually, and I'm going to call this Ansible, and save that. And we're going to SSH into it. Oh, Kieran. Thank you very much for the resub. Also, notice that my sub notification is working again. Why did it stop, you may wonder? It's because Twitch changed up the API, and I had to rewrite my script to use the new API endpoint. So we're going to connect to the Ansible host here. Actually, two of them. Let's see. I can't believe I haven't done this before. Uh, 192.168.99.2 SecLab Ansible. Why did it take me so long to do that? All right, SSH SecLab at SecLab Ansible. Beautiful. Okay, we'll leave that alone for the moment because what we need to do is actually local on this machine, which is make the Ansible playbook for Docker. So this is, by the way, this is going to be available for everybody because this repo is open. If anybody wants to use these Ansible playbooks that we're and roles that we come up with, welcome to do so. So the one that we're going to add here is to create a Docker host role. And what I'm doing for this is I'm pulling directly from the Docker docs, and I'm just translating that into Ansible tasks here. Okay, and so what I've done is I've created a role for Docker, and then later I will create a playbook for the specific host that I want to attach it to. Actually, there's one thing I want to do over here. So sudo vim etc Ansible hosts, right? Add this thing to my inventory. So Linux hosts, we're going to do, again, 10.1.99.6. And I'll also add it to the infrastructure group, 10.1.99.6, if for whatever reason I needed that. And everything else looks good. Cool. All right, so to install Docker via Ansible, what do we do? Well, first thing we do is make sure that everything is set up correctly. And notice that we're using update cache. Yes, let me full screen this so it's a little bit easier to see. We're just installing the prereqs. These should all be there anyway, but the reason we go to the trouble of installing it with the Ansible task is that we also get to run this update cache, yes, which in Ansible land means you're running sudo apt update before you install, which means, cool, we'll be able to update anything else that we need later. Then we're going to go get the Docker GPG key and send it to user share keyrings docker archive keyring.gpg. Now, the documentation that I just linked you has a sudo right here. I took it out because this task is going to run as root anyway. And we'll do that when we actually make the playbook rather than the task. We'll say become root. And so I don't need the sudo in here. So you'll see that a couple places as well. I think there's another one for like sudo t where I got rid of that. So just be aware of that. And then we're going to add the Docker sources. And unfortunately, there is no built-in for Ansible that does this easily. So we're just going to echo, right, the stuff that we need, signed by, there's the keyring, GPG key, sending it to etc apt sources list.d docker.list. Okay? So we're teeing it to that file and then outputting it to dev null for any errors. Then we install the Docker engine. For this, I actually also have to do update cache because we've just added a new source, right? So to get the new packages, we have to do sudo apt update and then apt install docker ce. Docker CE CLI. They finally updated the documentation on this, by the way. I was so excited to see it. That these used to be the three things that it would tell you to install. But as of like today, I did this, I think, last week, and I didn't see this. But now the documentation is finally, they're hosting Docker Compose in their repos. You don't have to do that weird curl thing that you used to have to do to install Docker Compose afterward. So you'll get Docker Compose in one move with this, along with the rest of the Docker stuff. Exquisite. Then finally, just for a helper for me, I'm adding the seclab user to the Docker group here. So Ansible built-in.user, groups, Docker, append, yes, and the name is seclab. That's the user that we're messing with. And that's kind of it in terms of the Docker role. Lovecraft Cat, you're very welcome, and thank you for the follow. Now, remember that roles in Ansible are a little bit different than playbooks. Roles are kind of more abstract things, right? This is the role that I want a server, a set of servers to do. And the playbook would be assigning that role to a specific host or set of hosts. So with this Docker here, what I'm now going to do is make a new file inside of here called Docker. And we'll take our cues actually from the Moodle playbook. It's super easy. SourceSocket says music is blocking. Can you turn it down a little bit? No. Yeah, no problem. Is that better, SourceSocket? I try to be super careful with it, but I'm okay making it a little quieter. Okay, so in this case, hosts, we're gonna call it Linux Infra. That's what I called the group, right? Infrastructure. I could have called it Linux hosts too, right? Linux hosts, but we're gonna limit it with a command line option anyway. Now, if I wanted to, roles, Docker, and that is going to then look in this roles folder for the Docker role and then set that up. All this looks good to me, so I'm going to make a new page here. CD, oh, fish, thank you. CD, SecLab playbooks. And playbooks. Cool. And git status. Right, perfect. Git add. Oh, what did I do with the lamp? Oh, git commit am fix lamp typo. There was a typo in the damp the lamp role, so we'll do that first and then git add a. Ah, good. Thank you for the heads up on that, GoPro. We may be able to do a smooth handoff. Git commit Docker role playbook. Git push. You know, if this works the first time, I'm going to be pretty happy. So over here on the Ansible server, I'm going to cd into the SecLab playbooks repo, right? And I'm going to git pull. And I'm pulling that directly from my GitHub repo, so now it has the latest stuff. You see now it's got the Docker, blah, 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 blah. Cool. Now, we can run Ansible playbook. Docker.yaml, but I'm going to do limit to 10.1.99.6, which means that only applies to the 10.1.99.6 host inside whatever group. That's really handy for me. So let's make that happen. Permission denied. I forget to copy the SSH key. Well, that should have been done. Fish is what I was using locally. Yes, this is the fish shell, which is my preferred shell. Bash on the server. All right, that was it. I just need to copy the SSH key over, and it's doing the stuff. This is a pretty straightforward playbook. And role. I don't think it's going to be too crazy. Oh man. Yeah, so fish shell. Things I love about it. It has better autocomplete, better search, better history. It has sane scripting. Just to show you. Oh dear. Oh, I have to change up the syntax then. Just to show you a cool fish thing, since we're on the topic though. Watch this. For I in seek 10 echo I end. much saner scripting in Fish. And for that reason, I love it a lot. And I'm actually using Static Noise XYZ. I'm using a plugin called Oh My Fish that takes a lot of its cues from Oh My ZSH. And then the theme I'm using is called Bob the Fish. But like OMF is actually something that I use. That's the Oh My Fish plugin to get this theme. And then Powerline fonts to do all the cool Git stuff. All right, so I have to make a quick change to this Docker playbook where I have to change this up. It has to be a list, and then I have to kind of wrap each of these in quotes. I'm gonna have to do that down here too. Now I could do this very quickly with regular expressions, but it's one of those things where sometimes doing it manual is fast enough. There is such a thing as over automation or over optimization. I think you can actually use a comma, no need to square brackets or quotes. Oh, interesting. Thank you. Let's see what this does. Sometimes I can do it quickly in regex. Okay, confirm prereqs worked, add Docker GPG key. Yep, good. That should not hang. That's weird. Here's a good fish thing. So seclab at okay, I do have internet connection. Just wanted to confirm that. That shell command is hanging, and that's freaking me out. Because it really shouldn't. Maximum transmission unit? What does the maximum transmission unit have to do with this? No, I think it's because it doesn't know how to register the output. Yeah, it's there. It's hanging on getting the GPG key, which it did. No, I'm pretty sure that this is about registering output. Yeah, in fact, we can help it out a little bit with this. So we're going to add something to this. I'm going to add creates user share. Exactly. Thank you, Ansible helper. Registering that it creates that. And this creates this. That's going to help us out. Because that'll tell Ansible that it's done. Yeah. Okay. So git commit creates to Docker role. Oh, come on. What'd I do? Oh, fine. I don't think it likes this. Yeah. That was dumb. It was an indentation error. And this is cleaner anyway. Oh, YAML. I swear we're going to get OpenCTI up today. But of course, as usual, doing things the right way takes 1,000 times longer. There it is. Right, we needed the creates value here to give Ansible a way of knowing that the task had been completed. That's handy, though. I'm really glad. I know it took more time, but I'm glad we went to the trouble of setting up this Docker playbook and role, because I know for sure I'm going to use this in the future. I can't tell you how many times I've like set up a new lab, and the first thing that I want to do is set up a Docker host. Updating from such a repository can't be done securely. Oh no, did I forget a source? Save certificates, curl, GNU PG, LSP release. No. The public key is not available. What the hell? What went wrong here? Public key is not available. Key. This is not signed. Vocal stable. It's empty. I'm going to run the job again.
What up, party people? This is Swayze, and you are listening to
Let's make sure. Download Docker GPG. Let me just try this to make sure we see the public key. Oh yeah, it's there. All right, let's try to run the job one more time. Now that we've removed that empty file, it should populate. How was everybody's week? Anybody have any cool stuff happen? All right. Studying for the Sec Plus. Ooh. Gotta say, Friendly Warlock, I am a big fan of the Sec Plus as an introductory. Oh no. That's failing for the same reason. I'm a big fan of the Sec Plus. Sources list.d list. There we go. One more time. Oh, Nito, I'm so sorry that happened to you. That's the worst. That's just the worst. Ran a few vulnerable scans against my application. Didn't find anything. Nessus, just go with JavaScript applications. That is correct, Static Noise. If you watch some of our streams here, you'll find out why. But you probably found out why, right? Nessus is reading the raw HTML that comes out of your web server, and unfortunately, modern web applications are rendering HTML from the JavaScript in runtime. So unfortunately, unless you connect Nessus to something like Selenium or other kinds of browser emulators, you're not going to see that content. That's actually something that we talk about a lot when using Zap, where if you want to do a spider or an attack, you have to use the Ajax spider in order to get that rendered HTML into the database. It's a much more manual process, really, to test modern web applications. Really a huge problem, even for newer like vulnerability scanners like Nuclei, unless you're wrapping it through something like Selenium, which creates a browser and renders JavaScript. Just not going to have that happen. This curl command is not working. I wonder if there's a better way to do this. In fact, I know there is. Have I done the Selenium setup on stream? No, because I hate it a lot. Frankly, I let Zap do most of this for me, and you can automate Zap, by the way. Honestly, static noise, you should be using Zap for this tool, or this use case. You can automate Zap either from the automator built into it, or you can use the Python API to automate it from the command line if you want. But that is the trick, because Zap will handle this for you and produce better findings than Nessus, in my opinion, for web applications. Yeah, where my Zap gang at? I don't want to give too much away, but those of you who are interested in that particular topic, I think you're going to be very happy in about a month or so. Got some cool stuff in the works, so stay tuned for that. Yeah, this is stupid. I shouldn't be doing curl like this. I should be using the I think that I did this with Moodle. I did like a straight download, right? Yes. Get URL. This is what we should have done. And make this URL. I have a working Docker setup in Ansible for Debian 10 for Instagram and share. Static noise, I appreciate it, but I'm gonna say no thank you. And the reason is I kind of want to get this one for myself. I bet you can appreciate that. And I think I'm close. But thank you for the offer. I really do appreciate that. All right, let's try that one. Connection timed out. No valid OpenPGP data found. It's interesting. If this doesn't work, we might just move on for the moment, just because I want to get to OpenCTI. Oh, good. The GPG key got in there. I think that's it. And the Docker engine, this can take a second to happen. So let's start thinking about what we need to do for OpenCTI itself. Let's go to the documentation for the installation. This is a little bit funky. Let's go back up to OpenCTI public knowledge. Nobuchi Kagenoza, welcome. Wasn't Docker supposed to make our lives easier? We spent so much time fighting with it. I don't know. It's made my life easier quite a bit. I save once I have everything set. Like Ansible was the problem here. If you're potentially rerunning the setup on the same host, shouldn't you consider removing the files before you downloading them? I did. So yes, you're right. Still getting the same GPG error though, even though the key's definitely there. Is there something weird in the header? Nope. And we can do it easy mode that gets with the install script if we wanted to. Alright, tell you what, I will fix this Docker install script later. But for now, because I want to move on and actually get to OpenCTI. I feel like some of those command line flags were messing us up. Well, now I'm curious. Well, it didn't matter because the GPG key was here. Okay, what is happening? Oh, whoa. Apparently, there's a thing with focal is the issue. If we change it up to impish, it might work. Sorry, I don't like having stuff not work for weird reasons, but apparently this is a known issue. Shouldn't you? So Matthias said doing an automated way. I mean, the purpose of the Ansible task is that it creates the state, but one thing that it doesn't do super well is rollbacks. So I can't super well automate that inside of Ansible. I see what your point is, though. But to that point, actually, we're going to remove docker.list here. Okay. Anonymous cheerer, thank you for the single bit. Yeah, so we changed basically what we did was we changed the version from impish to, from focal to impish, which is the 2104 version, which may in fact work here. Yeti-like, thank you for the follow. All right, so what do we need for OpenCTI? If we go to installation and upgrade using Docker. Right. So we're going to pull down the OpenCTI platform, Docker, and we're going to make a new folder. Still? No, that didn't matter. There's like something up with the key, it seems like, right now. So for now, oh, it's so annoying. All right, we're just gonna pull down what we need here. Ah, so gross. Wow. All right, what do we got? Zero Kieran, thank you so much for the 3 gift subs to E. Burke, Static Noise, and to Brian. If you try to complete the official Docker administration, get this error on the Ubuntu 20 focal distro. You could better try the DigitalOcean manual. Apt key add. Oh, right! Because it's wrong. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Right. That is weird. Yeah, this is wrong. We don't need sudo because we're root. Ah, yes, 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 yes. Okay, and then again creates. Actually, we don't need a creates in this one because it'll just do its thing. But then and then sudo add apt repository. Right, so we're not going to do this either. This makes a lot more sense. Which, of course, I should have thought about. Just make sure that that command's correct. I just did the same thing twice. But it doesn't create anything. And we're not going to do that. Okay. I think that's good. Okay, we're going to try that. I don't like to lose. So clean that up. Remove the Docker, and then, okay, and then we'll remove that. Okay. Git pull. Yeah, let's try that. The curl is still hanging. Do I have any... Oh, you know what? There's an apt key module for Ansible. That's what we should be using. I'll bet you there's an apt repository too. Yep, there is. And that's how we do that. Apt repository. Yeah, because this is going to fail every time because it doesn't have a way of guaranteeing the command executed. So we'll do apt repository, and then the way this works is that it takes the repo key. And we'll just make this focal for now. Okay. State present is good. I'm going to make sure that it's present. This is the default, I think, but being explicit about it is okay. Okay, get use proper built-ins. I'm still learning Ansible, and I need to be careful and remember that I should always check to see if there's a built-in rather than relying on shell commands, because they're, as we've seen, unreliable. God, 2 hours to get this going. Sorry, everybody. Not the way that I expected this one to go, but that's blue team for you, and that's sys administration for you. Things take longer than you expect. That completed. Okay. Please don't fail. Okay, so using Docker, we're going to make an OpenCTI folder. Well, it's not failing yet. Oh. How many times have I done that? Is it 1,000? Is it 10,000? Okay. So let's take a look at this. Let's vim the docker compose.yaml and see what this is bringing up. And so Docker Compose, if you're not familiar with it, is a way of using Docker in such a way that you can bring up multiple things at once and connect containers together. Think of it, oh, I don't want to say think of it as a mini Kubernetes because it's really a terrible metaphor if you're not familiar with Kubernetes, but it allows very, very fundamental, very rudimentary orchestration of containers. So what are we bringing up? We're bringing up Redis, okay, Elasticsearch, okay, MinIO, notice that, look, we're using environment variables, okay, RabbitMQ, OpenCTI, this is the actual one, and look at all the environment variables that are expected to be set here. And then the worker, a single worker. Depends on OpenCTI. It's doing 3 replicas. Okay. Good thing I gave this thing enough power to do that. Now, I'm not doing this in a swarm. I could if I wanted to. Oh, it's perfect. GoPro's doing Kubernetes after this. Love it. So this is what's coming up afterwards. So requirements.txt. Oh, thank God. Awesome. Hey. Docker installed, finally. Good. So our playbook is, our role is working successfully. We just had to use the built-ins rather than the shell commands. Oh. All right, goodbye. Okay, so now that we've done that, clone the repository, done that, configure the environment. So wants us to install JQ. The environment variables as they're proposed, you have in the m.sample. Do I? Oh yeah, I do. CD, OpenCTI, Docker, LSA. You'll see that there is an env.sample. Let's vim that .m.sample. See, open add, so all this stuff, right? So we can set this up. You have the n.sample directly set the, right. Okay, so we're gonna just mess with these right now to set these up. So I'll set these to values that I want. And the way that this .env file works is that the Docker Compose runner will take these and load these as environment variables for the containers as it spins them up. At taggertech.com. You're going to do this very, very simply because it's on stream. This is not what you should do in production. Seclab, OpenCTI, open admin, change token. Thank you. Isn't that a fun tool? The MinIO root user. Just call that MinIO. We can do this as well, I guess. Stuff that we won't need to access directly. Rabbit default user. Okay. And then the connector history. Bunch of UUIDs that we need here. It's so interesting. Now you notice in the documentation it's using the here dot syntax to basically allow us to run the UUIDs directly from the shell and make this happen. We could do that. But this is fine too. How many do I need? 3 more. There we go. And I keep doing that. I don't need to go down there. I've got the text. Awesome. SMTP hostname. It would be smtp@gmail.com, but it's not going to matter. I'm not connecting this to my email. Once that's done, we've configured the environment. Memory management. For additional memory, and as OpenCTI has a dependence on Elasticsearch, you have to set the VM max map count before running. Right. God, every time. So I have this problem. Copy on my terminals is Control-Shift-C, and so I'm used to doing that for copying when I'm working with the terminal. And then, obviously, I end up opening the inspector if I'm in a browser. All right, that's fixed. To make this parameter consistent, I'll do that. Sudo vim, or I'll do. Let's see, sysctl.conf. Okay, right now, we're gonna snapshot this thing. Just in case. Before we do anything funny with it. We always take a snapshot before we do something funny with the machine. Just good lab hygiene. All right, done. And now, what else do we need? Run OpenCTI. Full stack, including UI. That is correct. That's what we're doing. Now, put your environment variables in etc environment using single node. I'm confused by that, but because the whole point of environment files is that you don't do that. I'm confused by this step. Because the entire, like, the .env file. You can set default values for any environment variables referenced in the compose file or used to configure compose in an environment file named .env. Why then Does this documentation tell me to make my Docker host use those environment variables? That is incorrect, as I understand it. Now, if I'm wrong, somebody please correct me, but I'm pretty sure that this is not necessary. The whole point of the .env file, right, is that we don't do that. Now, we just made that .env.sample.env, so we're good, right? Wait, is Docker Compose seriously not installed still? I thought the whole point... Fine. If we need to install Docker Compose... Oh, we'll have to add that to the playbook, but that's annoying. I thought the whole point of that package was that we wouldn't have to do that. Unless they didn't chmod it. ls user local bin rep. Nope. Oh, is the problem is it someplace else? That's just the key. Not a thing. Oh, ls. Hold on a second. User local lib. This is so new. To install the Python version of Compose, follow instructions of the Compose. Oh, this is brand new. It's gonna stable version. Compose. Okay, fine. We'll just get it from the release. That's different. Because it used to be you'd have to install this whole thing. Dang. x86. Nope, that's Linux x86 64. Weird. I'm sorry, am I having a problem connecting to Docker or GitHub? There we go. Weird. Hooray! Docker Compose works. Okay, let's go back to OpenCTI and Docker. And now... Weird. Just weird. I don't know why this is columned like this. So Docker stack deploy compose file docker compose.yaml OpenCTI. So Docker stack deploy compose file docker compose.yaml OpenCTI. Oh, I have to do docker swarm init first, don't I? Docker swarm init. Oh man, it's been a minute since I've done this. Advertise adder 192.168.99.6. Boom. Okay, so the swarm is initialized, and now we can do docker stack deploy. We're creating a new network to connect all of the OpenCTI containers. Creating a service. The service would be the stuff that has the containers in it. So we saw that there's OpenCTI container, Redis, RabbitMQ, Elasticsearch, the connectors, export file, import file. Now we're going to run this. And then we're going to see if we can get to it. Hopefully we can. Okay, cool. Docker service ls. Dope. Actually, let me close down this bottom pane. I don't need that. Bunch of stuff is running. That's better. I'll just full screen the terminal. Notice that it's not up though. No, there. So yeah, we have replica 0 of 1. Just because the services were created doesn't mean that they're ready. Notice now RabbitMQ is up. We're still waiting for the CTI workers to come up. And the connectors for export file, CSV, sticks, taxi, plain text, and one. Right? So the import file is coming up. So it takes time to bring this thing up, right? But we're on our way. We're on our way. Finally getting there. Now, we're also going to like bring this down again, because we're going to bring it down and then add a connector. So let's talk about adding a connector. So let's go back to the public knowledge and connectors. And you can kind of see that there's a connector here. And if we look back into our config, let's vim that Docker Compose again. See how we have a connector export file txt and it has an image and then this environment variable stuff? Okay. Well, it turns out that there are additional connectors that are available as images from the Docker Hub. We do a search for OpenCTI/connector. We'll find them all. Here are some of them. Import document, import report. Hey, look, Alien Vault. And virus total. What would we need to do to make this work? Looks like not much here. So we wanted to add these. We would add these connectors. How does that work? We're going to yank this and paste it. And we're going to change this to, instead of import document, change it to connector. Let's do Alien Vault first. Alien Vault. And what are our tags looking like? There's latest, rolling, and then 5.2.4. So let's do 5.2.4, which is what it's set up for already. Phenomenal. Now, it's not telling us that we need an API key or anything. So I wonder if we can figure that once we get there. Let's save this just for now. Ooh, we have to change connector type. Connector name. Right, because this is going to be different. This is Vault. We should probably read a little bit more about this. Connector configuration using Doctor. An arbitrary name to identify the connector. Connector scope. Connector documentation. Ooh, you know what? Maybe it's on GitHub. If we look in OpenCTI's repos, OpenCTI platform, connectors. I think this is like the base connector, though. Yeah. This is like the template. We only have 5 repositories. Let's look more broadly. Open. You can find a list of all available connectors and plugins in the OpenCTI ecosystem dedicated space. All hosted on Notion. This is very strange. API clients. Right. Alien Vault. Here it is. Boy, that took so many clicks. All right, here we go. This is what I thought we needed. We provide an example Docker Compose YAML file. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. So we're going to do connector name, connector scope is Alien Vault. You know what? Let's pause on this. And let's check out our Docker services, see if everything's up and running. Almost. Oh, it says a token must be set. Maybe we did need to set those variables. If we must, we must. Although, frankly, hold on a second. Yeah, no, that was taking it from the environment variable. So the environment variable is what was messed up there. All right, then we will set this correctly using Docker. Go down to that step we skipped because I was like, I know better than this documentation. Yeah. So cat env. Let's see, environment. Yeah, that's not a thing you can do, right? You have to be root to make that happen. Must be the Honeypot project. Alien Vault's hosting the Nginx server. Yeah. Honeypot projects have something like that going on. There's also like MISP in the Hive. There's all kinds of stuff that's open source that like is supposed to work, but it is a bit of a pain to get it all connected, which is why we're kind of going through this today. Like, what does it take to get an open source tip up and running? And the answer is a lot. Okay, so the environment variables are there, finally. So what that means is that we can do docker stack. Yeah, let's do that. Oh, except... service ls. Good. Docker container ls. Good. Okay, so if we're going to do this, we might as well do it with the Alien Vault connector, right? So to make that happen, connector ID, connect OpenCTI token. Let's vim the Docker compose file and get this all working. Deja Vu Code and DBCS, thank you so much for the follows. So this is connector import. This is connector Alien Vault. We have to change the name here. All right, and then connector type. We look at this here. Let me side by side these. Nice. Connector type is going to be external import. What else do we need? Connector scope, Alien Vault. Yep. Connector auto. We don't need to do that. Connector Update existing data. Let's go to the raw here and just copy pasta some stuff in. Connector log level equals info. Import document create indicator is not a thing for this, so we'll get rid of that. And then connector confidence level equals 15. Okay. And then we're going to take our Alien Vault stuff here. We're going to... what'd I forget to do? Set paste. All right, that was better. God, this is a lot. Okay, so the Alien Vault API key, I'm going to go get that. Don't use my API key. Pulse start timestamp. We're obviously gonna change that. Oh my god. How about since May 1st? Alien Vault for report. Perfect. Perfect. I think this looks good to get Alien Vault up. Right? I'm happy with that. Okay. Docker stack. Boy. Fingers crossed. And again, we should have those environment variables now. Oh, there it was. I was like, where's Alien Vault? There it is. Okay. Docker service ls. Oh, man. That's coming up a lot faster because we have those environment variables. This is actually working this time. Uh-oh. Those came up and went down. That's never a good sign. The connectors are struggling, it looks like. OpenCTI was up and now it's down. Okay, that connector's up. This is concerning. Okay, let's take a look at the logs for Alien Vault. It says a token must be set. OpenCTI API client. So apparently it's not pulling those tokens still. Okay. Docker stack rm, OpenCTI. Bring that back down. Come root. We're going to try that one more time. Having sourced the Etsy environment into root directly. And I think this is one of those things where it's like, since you're running as root, right? Ooh, connector history ID is missing a thing. Oops. Let's fix that. Yeah, it's going to be another UID. Thank you. Okay, we're going to leave nothing to chance here. Gonna do cd home seclab OpenCTI Docker source or no, we're gonna cat.env. Oh crap, actually vim Etsy environment. You know what? Let's just do it this way. We're gonna do the connector history ID. Yank e Etsy environment. And we will paste that, delete that. Good. Source Etsy environment. Good. Exit. Source Etsy environment. Cool. Close this. All right. One more time. Services coming back up. Okay. A token must be set. Is a token not set? A token must be set. All right, I'm gonna see if we can log into this thing anyway. Just to see if we can look at it up. Connection refused. HTTPS. Nope. A token must be set. Okay. Time to do a little Googling here. Ah, good. 3 results. One of which is from GitHub. All right. If token is none, well, where is token? Init. And this is in the class OpenCTI API client. So it's not, okay, it's not pulling. The OpenCTI tokens here. Right? This admin token isn't getting passed. Got the env. CTI admin token. What is going wrong here? Let's okay. Hold on a second. Okay. Docker container. What's up? Let's connect to this. Docker container exec it bin bash. Please have bash. Damn it. All right. Let's try to connect to just the root platform. Wow. So these are coming up and down constantly. What about Redis? Ah, that one's stable. Okay. What do you have for me? Nothing. But what was it supposed to have? Nothing. CTI admin token. I mean, all of this is set. Okay, let's try this one more way. Bring this all down. Env. Okay. Look, we've got the OpenCTI stuff in here. Okay. Env rep OpenCTI. Definitely there. Okay. So now as root, no weird user stuff going on. Let's just run this as root. Docker stack deploy. Compose file. Docker compose.yaml. And call it OpenCTI. Now we're running this as root. So, and we know that the environment variables are present. There's no weird pass-through that might be confusing something. Okay, that's fine. OpenCTI, waiting for OpenCTI to start a check. That's fine. Oh. Damn it. Let's see. RabbitMQ is up. The workers are up. Redis is up. Elastic is up. But it might not be up. You know what I mean? Okay, that's better than we've seen it before. We're still waiting for the API to come up. But what we're not seeing this time is the token, right? So plainly it's getting the token. It's just having trouble connecting to the API. That could be a time thing, right? We can give it a minute. But that seems to be the issue. Like if you run this as root, then you don't worry about any of those other problems. And yeah, so these connectors are all, I think, having that same problem where they're waiting for the CTI API. So this is like taking time. So Docker service logs, OpenCTI. OpenCTI. Hey, Lisso. It's going about the way that this stuff goes, which is hard and annoying. Ooh, we have a configuration error. A configuration error has occurred. Category encountered a connection refused. Elasticsearch seems down. So we're waiting for Elasticsearch to come up, it looks like. So this is one of the things about Docker that I think people misunderstand when you bring up these things. And I actually talk about this kind of a lot. Even if you do a depends on key in a Docker Compose YAML, just because the container is created first does not mean that the stuff is going to be, like the services inside the container are going to be provisioned in time for the next container to work with it. And so you have to like kind of wait for it. It's literally a race condition. You have to kind of wait for everything to even out in order for your containers to work the way that they're supposed to. All right, look at that. We're all up. Kubernetes does smooth that out. Right, because what it does, it's handling... Kubernetes is handling the down and up for you. Docker Swarm does that a little bit too, but it still takes time for everything to come up online. We're up. 2.5 hours later. Wait, what? Oh no. What's the password? Oh, admin. I was like, oh no. Oh no, what now? Are you kidding me? Was it admin? Are you... Why is this not... I set... It's right here. Does it want my email? Okay. Huge gripe. If you want an email, ask for a damn email. Don't call it a username. Overclocks, thank you for the follow. I hate that UI pattern. If you tell me it's a username, I'm going to assume that it's a username, not an email. Well, look. All right, so we have stuff going on. If we look at our data, let's see what we have going on here. We don't have any data in here yet. We have a pending file. No threats. Turn it on. Go home. Wait, where was I just there? All right. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Look at this. It pulled. We got him. Okay. So look at this. We're pulling a lot of stuff from Alien Vault, obviously. And then I validate this pending bundle. The connector. Yeah, so it looks good. Sticks taxi, which is the file format for this thread intelligence. It's processing the data. Let's go to our dashboard and see what we have. Okay, that took a lot of work, but that's actually cool as hell. Now, what can we do with this data? We may not have targeted countries yet, because that's not the kind of data that comes in from Alien Vault usually. But if I look for threats, I can add specific threat actors here if I know about them, or they can be imported from specific sources. Look, we've got a Remcos already from the Arsenal. This was added from Alien Vault. And so we can kind of review all this intelligence. And here are the indicators, right? Now, these are our confidence levels. If we know that this is for sure an indicator for this this threat actor, we can kick up the confidence level. Remember that when we saw in the environment variables, there was a default confidence level of 15 assigned to everything coming in from Alien Vault. That's actually kind of low. I might kick it up to like 30. But we can in fact do that. Now, if other sources show some of this same data, we'll have a distribution of opinions here. But let's go on the edit button, see what else we can do, right? Yeah, that's just the confidence. Let's go back to our arsenal, see if more stuff came in, because it's processing data as we're doing this, right? And these are MITRE ATT&CK. And then this is a report we got, the latest Remco's rat driven by phishing campaign, and it's from Alien Vault, right? So this was the report itself. Analysis based on a phishing campaign that led to the release of Remco's rat, a malware family used by hackers to secretly control computers to steal sensitive information from victims' devices. This is how it got in here, and here are the external references. I can write notes. And if I wanted to focus in on specific parts, here are the observables with a nice little graph display. File hashes. Oh, this is all of my domain stuff, right? I think this is still for the Remco's, right? Yeah. But this is the map of observables. Here's the MITRE ATT&CK listing and how it connects to specific atomics. No content. Entities. So here's where we look at the attack pattern, right? If we want to learn more about that TTP, we can go here. Okay, that took a lot of work to set up, but I'm actually pretty chuffed with what I'm seeing. This would be cool. Now, this is kind of step one, because there's going to be so much data coming into a tip like this. Step two would be to automate the export of this data. Like, this is an aggregator of threat intelligence, right? We're pulling from VirusTotal, we're pulling from Alien Vault, or whatever. And I also need to be able to add stuff myself, right? So step two is I could do manual analysis. If I add an event here, I can create a new event. Let's do that. We'll call it Offensive Notion campaign. Do you filter what is coming, or do you ingest everything that is available and filter later? So that's a really good question. Your feeds should be filtered one way or another. I think that the connectors should have ways of filtering. And you can also so your services that you are connecting to can be ways that you filter. So like the Alien Vault stuff is going to be pretty much raw, but I think you can subscribe to specific pulse providers inside of Alien Vault, and that'll customize your feed, right? So, and the same thing with like any of the paid sources, like if you did Recorded Future or Anomaly or whatever, you can get those feeds customized there. And that's kind of one version of filtering. And then here, the confidence level is kind of your next stage filtering. And remember, that's all like upstream. The second part, as I was saying, is that after the tip, the next destination is you're exporting that data via API or manual export or whatever to your appliances. So sending it to like your firewalls, things like that, so that you don't have to manually do those block lists. People like to debate about the value of allow lists and block lists. Look, it's a first pass. Yes, the atomic indicators are going to change quickly. That's why your feeds are automated. But like, why not, right? If your appliance has the ability to do it, why not have that layer of defense in there just in case? Like, what do you risk? There's no reason not to do it. So the description is fake Notion app. Let's create this. And then once we have it, we can add external, those are MITRE attacks. So we can add MITRE attacks if we wanted. I want to add entities. This is an entity. Oh, this is like healthcare. No, observations is what I want, right? Because here are your atomics. So if I wanted to add an observation, create an observable, domain name, score. We'll give it, yeah, like 70. Value, API, SPI, api.notion.com. I can add labels if I want, or create new ones later. Marking. This is traffic light protocol. This is TLP green. That's fine. Okay. Create. And can I create labels right from here? Create a label. Good. C2. Color. Blood red. Ugh, so threatening. I love it. I love it. Okay, now we go to events. And we go to edit here. Can I add details? Nope. External references.
Little lady, you better get the hell out of here before I pull out the big gun on you.
Baby, your gun doesn't work on me. Now where?
I'm trying to look for how I add. Is it just in data?
I don't.
No. Analysis.
Wrong answer.
Knowledge. Total observables. Click on observables. Can I add one? Yes. Hooray. API.notion.com. Now I've created a relationship between a campaign and an observable. I'll check that confidence level to strong, because obviously I found it. Yep, related to. Boom.
He was telling the truth.
So, like, not the easiest, but for what you do with it, that's really kind of interesting. Let's go back to our dashboard, see if we got any new information here. Mostly the Remco strat. Now, remember, I also limited how much I was pulling in, right? Because I was pulling it in from, like, the beginning of May. If I had added more data, I would have changed that up. But I think for a start, this is pretty cool. I don't know about you. I'm excited about what I'm seeing here. So I think we're going to call it. It's been a 3-hour stream. And so thank you, everybody, for hanging out. I know that it took a while to get up and running, but we are up and running. And we kind of went through all the possible things that can go wrong with this setup. So thank you for hanging in, everybody who did. And all right, so we're going to raid GoPro. But before we do, if you don't know about the hack list, there are a lot of great InfoSec streamers on Twitch, and a follow or a sub thrown their way would certainly be appreciated. So I'll be back on Tuesday doing some more offensive stuff, and Wednesday, of course, doing programming. Those are at 5 p.m. Pacific. So we're going to raid GoPro. But until next time, friends, please be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and happy hacking. We will see you next time.